The Reckoning. The message appeared across every screen in the Galactic Consortium's territory simultaneously. No encryption stopped it. No firewall blocked it. It simply manifested, appearing in the native script of each species that viewed it. You have 72 hours to evacuate all Consortium worlds. Those who remain will perish. In the Grand Chamber of the Consortium Council on Axiom Prime, Supreme Arbiter Vorax clicked his mandibles in irritation. The spindly, 12-limbed arthropoid turned his compound eyes toward his military advisor, General Carval. Another human provocation, Vorax said dismissively. Their psychological warfare grows tiresome. General Carval, a massive reptilian with iridescent scales that shifted from crimson to violet as she moved, studied the projection of the message hanging in the chamber center. Unlike the Arbiter, she had faced humans in combat during the Proxima campaign. She had witnessed firsthand their resourcefulness, their tenacity, and their willingness to sacrifice. Supreme Arbiter, she said carefully, her tail twitching nervously against protocol. I recommend we consider at least a partial evacuation of high-value assets. The chamber erupted in derisive hisses and clicks from the assembled council members. Vorax raised 4 of his upper limbs to silence them. General, surely you don't suggest we capitulate to threats from a species confined to a single solar system. Need I remind you of our victory at New Eden? No one needed reminding. The Consortium's preemptive pacification of the human colony on New Eden had been broadcast across Consortium space as a testament to their military superiority. The orbital bombardment had been precisely timed to strike the colony's educational complexes while children were in attendance. The death toll minus 800,000 children in less than 6 minutes had been calculated to break human resistance once and for all. The humans had withdrawn to their home system afterward, cutting all diplomatic channels. The Consortium had interpreted this as submission. Precisely because I remember New Eden, I advise caution, General Carval insisted. The humans have never made empty threats. Nonsense, Vorax dismissed. Our intelligence indicates they possess no weapons capable of threatening even a single Consortium world, let alone all 17. Send them our response. The Consortium acknowledges no ultimatum from lesser species. On Luna Base Alpha, buried 3 kilometers beneath the lunar surface, Admiral Helena Rodriguez received the Consortium's reply on a quantum-encrypted channel. She didn't need to read beyond the first line. They're not evacuating, she announced to the gathering of military and scientific leaders in the command center. The room was spartanly furnished, with only a circular table and a holographic display showing real-time data from across the Sol system. Dr. Elias Chen, director of Project Prometheus, nodded grimly. The slender physicist's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses. We expected as much, he said. The Consortium has always underestimated human ingenuity. They think technological advancement follows a predictable linear progression. Rodriguez turned to the third person at the table, General Marcus Okafor, the imposing tactical genius who had orchestrated the withdrawal from human outer colonies after New Eden. General, your assessment. Okafor's dark eyes remained fixed on the holographic display showing the Consortium's 17 core worlds. They believe their technological superiority is insurmountable, he said, his deep voice resonating in the chamber. Their sensor networks are calibrated to detect known weapons signatures, antimatter containment fields, tachyon emissions, gravitational distortions. They're looking for weapons we've never built. Rodriguez nodded, then placed her palm on the biometric scanner embedded in the table. Computer, initiate Operation Nemesis. Authorization Rodriguez Alpha 7 Omega. Voice and biometric authentication accepted, the AI responded. Operation Nemesis initiated. Target acquisition in progress. Dr. Chen walked to the auxiliary console, where he entered a complex series of commands. You understand there's no going back from this, he said quietly. The Prometheus protocol will permanently alter the quantum substrate of their star systems. Rodriguez's expression hardened. They killed our children, Doctor, 800,000 in 6 minutes. Because they could. Because they wanted to demonstrate their power. I wasn't questioning the decision, Chen replied. Just making sure we acknowledge the magnitude of what we're about to do. General Okafor joined them at the console. History will judge us, certainly. But first, we must ensure humanity has a future in which history can be written. Dr. Chen nodded and pressed his palm against the final authorization scanner. Prometheus protocol activated, announced the AI. Quantum entanglement network engaging. Target acquisition complete. Beginning selective alteration of fundamental constants. On Axiom Prime, the first anomalies appeared 12 hours after the human ultimatum. Subtle at first, inconsistent gravitational measurements, unexpected behaviors in particle accelerators, minute fluctuations in nuclear decay rates. The consortium's scientists attributed these to instrument error. By the 30-hour mark, the anomalies could no longer be dismissed. On Merivale, the third world of the consortium, water began to flow uphill. On Kalos Prime, fires burned cold, emitting darkness instead of light. On Thule, the strongest of the consortium military worlds, metal began to soften regardless of temperature. Supreme Arbiter Vorex convened an emergency session of the Council. What is happening to our worlds? He demanded of Chief Scientist Celera, his mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. The avian scientist spread her vestigial wings in a gesture of helplessness. Something is altering the fundamental constants of physics, but only within consortium space. The effect appears to be progressively intensifying and spreading. General Carval's scales had paled to an ashen gray. The humans. They warned us. Impossible. Vorex insisted. No species possesses such technology. We've monitored their research for centuries. Perhaps, said Celera, they allowed us to monitor only what they wanted us to see. At hour 48, the consortium finally ordered evacuations, but it was already too late. FTL drives failed as the altered physics made faster-than-light travel mathematically impossible within affected regions. Conventional drives worked, but the nearest safe zones were weeks away at sublight speeds. On Luna Base Alpha, Admiral Rodriguez watched the data streams with grim satisfaction. The Prometheus cascade has reached critical threshold, Dr. Chen reported. Phase 1 is complete. The fundamental constants in consortium space are now destabilized beyond recovery. General Okafor studied the holographic display showing the spreading chaos across consortium worlds. And Phase 2. Chen nodded solemnly. The constants will continue to shift, randomly and unpredictably. Within 72 hours, as promised, complex molecular structures throughout their territory will become unstable. Life as they know it will be impossible. And there's no way for them to stop it, Rodriguez asked. None, Chen confirmed. The quantum substrate itself has been altered. Even if they understood the technology, which they don't, they lack the means to reverse it. Rodriguez stood silent for a long moment, watching the cascading failure of the civilization that had murdered Earth's children. There was no joy in her heart, only the cold satisfaction of necessary retribution. Send a message to all consortium vessels approaching Sol space, she finally ordered. Any ship carrying refugees will be granted safe passage, provided they come unarmed and acknowledge Earth's sovereignty. As the message was transmitted, General Okafor approached Rodriguez privately. You know this changes everything, he said quietly. Once the other galactic powers learn what we can do, they'll fear us, Rodriguez finished. As they should. Humanity tried cooperation. We tried diplomacy. The consortium took those gestures as weakness and slaughtered our children as a demonstration. She turned to look at the general, her eyes hard as flint. Let the galaxy understand. Humanity's patience is not infinite, and our vengeance is not constrained by their understanding of physics. In the dying light of 17 doomed worlds, a new era of galactic politics was about to begin. The Awakening. Aboard the consortium emergency vessel Harbinger of Dawn, First Emissary Trell watched his homeworld Kalos Prime through the observation port. The once beautiful azure planet now pulsed with sickly yellow light as reality itself convulsed across its surface. Of the 17 consortium worlds, 15 were already in terminal collapse. Only Axion Prime and Marival remained marginally habitable, and even those were deteriorating by the hour. "I still don't understand how they did this," said Administrator Vox, a serpentine slick whose normally lustrous scales had dulled with stress. "Our scientists insist it violates everything we know about physics." "That," Trell replied, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, "was our fatal error. We assumed the humans operated within the same framework of understanding as the rest of the galaxy." The Harbinger shuddered as it accelerated toward the Sol system, carrying the highest-ranking consortium officials who had managed to escape. Behind them, thousands of refugee vessels followed, all broadcasting surrender protocols. "Will they actually grant us sanctuary?" asked Vox. "After what we did at New Eden." Trell's epidermis shifted from its normal golden hue to a troubled gray. "They said they would. And unlike us, the humans appear to keep their word." 3 days later, the Harbinger reached the edge of the Sol system. Immediately, they were surrounded by human defense platforms and warships that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, technology that somehow masked their presence until they chose to be seen. "Consortium vessel Harbinger of Dawn," came a human voice over the communication system. "This is Admiral Helena Rodriguez of Earth Defense Command. You are cleared to approach Earth orbit on vector 225.3. Earth came into view, a blue jewel orbited by an armada larger than anything the consortium had ever assembled. How had they hidden such power? The answer was now painfully obvious. They hadn't hidden it. The consortium had simply been looking in the wrong places, measuring the wrong metrics, making assumptions based on their own technological development path. Upon arrival in Earth orbit, First Emissary Trell and his delegation were escorted to a space station identified as Geneva Orbital Diplomatic Center. Admiral Rodriguez greeted them personally, flanked by General Okafor and Dr. Chen. "Welcome to Earth space," Rodriguez said, her voice neutral but her eyes cold. "You are the first consortium representatives to set foot in our territory since New Eden." Trell performed the consortium gesture of highest respect, a posture his kind found physically painful. "Admiral, we come seeking asylum, and to formally surrender on behalf of the Galactic Consortium." Rodriguez nodded. "Your surrender is accepted. Now, I believe you have questions." They were led to a conference room with a view of Earth below. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display showing a complex network of glowing lines connecting distant points. "What you're seeing," Chen explained, "is a visualization of quantum entanglement networks spanning the galaxy. For the past 50 years, while you monitored our conventional weapons research, we were developing something else entirely." The display zoomed in, showing microscopic machines. Quantum resonance seeders, too small for conventional detection, carried by ordinary merchant vessels to every corner of consortium space. Once in place, they created an entangled network that allowed us to selectively modify the fundamental constants of physics within specific spatial boundaries. General Okafor stepped forward. "We call it the Prometheus Protocol. In essence, we rewrote the laws of physics in your territory." Trell's epidermis paled to near white. Can it be reversed?" Rodriguez's expression remained impassive. "Theoretically, yes. Practically, it would take decades, assuming we were willing to help, which, at this moment, we are not." "You've committed xenocide," Administrator Vox hissed. 17 worlds. "You were warned," Rodriguez replied coldly. "You were given 72 hours to evacuate. And need I remind you of New Eden? 800,000 children, slaughtered without warning, without provocation, without even the chance to evacuate." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. "What happens now?" Trell finally asked. Rodriguez exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. "Now we negotiate the terms of a new relationship between humanity and the surviving consortium species." The talks lasted weeks. The remaining consortium representatives, now refugees dependent on human mercy, had little leverage. Yet to their surprise, the humans did not demand unconditional surrender or impose draconian terms. Instead, they presented a framework for coexistence. The consortium would be dissolved, replaced by a new galactic cooperative where all species, including humans, would have equal standing. No species would maintain exclusive control of military forces. Instead, a joint defense force would be established with multinational oversight. Most shockingly, the humans offered to use a modified version of the Prometheus Protocol to establish habitable zones for consortium refugees on previously uninhabitable worlds. During a private moment between sessions, Frel approached Dr. Chen with the question that had been haunting him. Why aren't you destroying us completely? After what we did, you have every right. Chen looked at him thoughtfully. Because that would make us like you. Humanity's darkest moments have taught us that vengeance, while satisfying, rarely leads to lasting peace. But the Prometheus Protocol was a weapon of last resort, Chen interrupted. One we hoped never to use. But having demonstrated it, we no longer need to use it. The universe now understands that humanity cannot be attacked with impunity. On the final day of negotiations, Admiral Rodriguez addressed the assembled representatives of both humanity and the former consortium. Today marks not just the end of one era, but the beginning of another, she said. The Galactic Cooperative Treaty establishes principles of mutual respect, shared governance, and collective security that will guide our civilizations forward. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. Let all species remember this moment. Humanity extended its hand in friendship, and it was slapped away. We offered cooperation, and were met with slaughter. We withdrew in grief, and you mistook our restraint for weakness. Her voice hardened. That mistake will not be made again. Yet neither will we perpetuate an endless cycle of retribution. New Eden cannot be undone. But its legacy can be a galaxy where such atrocities never happen again. Not to humans, not to any sentient species. 1 year later, as the first consortium refugees settled on their new homeworlds, planets made habitable through the very technology that had destroyed their original homes. Frel stood with Dr. Chen on an observation deck overlooking New Earth, the first colony of the Galactic Cooperative. Below them, human children played alongside the offspring of a dozen former consortium species. I still don't entirely understand, Trell admitted. You could have ruled the galaxy. With the Prometheus Protocol, no one could have opposed you. Chen smiled sadly. That's precisely why we chose not to. Power concentrated in one hand, any hand, eventually corrupts. We learned that through our own bloody history. He gestured toward the children below. This is our victory, Emissary Trell. Not domination, but coexistence. Not supremacy, but partnership. Trell's epidermis shifted to a deep blue of understanding. You are a strange species, Dr. Chen. Yes, Chen agreed, watching a human child share a toy with a young Slick. And that strangeness, our unpredictability, our capacity for both terrible vengeance and unexpected mercy, may be our greatest strength. As stars appeared in the darkening sky above New Earth, the galaxy continued its transformation. The equation had been balanced. Extinction had been answered not with extinction, but with evolution. Humanity had issued its ultimatum, demonstrated its power, and then chosen a path few could have predicted. In the end, that was humanity's true victory, not the power to destroy worlds, but the wisdom to build them anew.